Only as I could remake myself could I in any way remake the world. And what an undertaking. But he said, I found a solution. I will not now think of myself X number of years into the future. I am painting a portrait of myself. And portraits are not painted by one stroke with a brush. And so I am taking it easily. And I start with the little things in my life, the little things, and I change them to make them conform to the portrait of the being I am painting of myself. I started with a simple thing. We have a cat, or we had a cat, and it simply clawed up the entire rug. All the rugs were simply pieces of felt, all clawed out. And so we delayed buying a new rug. Really, said he, we were hoping that she would die. After all, she was 15 years old, and she seemed determined to outlive Methuselah. But because she still was very healthy, and she didn't die, we bought the new rug. And right away she starts all over again to tear up the rug. And for 2 days, I said something must be done in my imagination. I approved it with the producer. So I went to work in my imagination and saw this cat in the backyard tearing up a mat that we had in the backyard for just such a purpose. On the third day, she was out in that backyard clawing the mat until the day she died. She never once tore up our rug. Prayer is a destructive power in the world, save in the imagination of man. If someone heard that story and didn't believe it, they could this night have a cat in their house, and they will say, oh, that was just coincidence in his case. It won't work here, so I'm not even going to try it. That borders on madness, and no one wants to be mad. In fact, to say that you were once put away is like leprosy. They don't want that. That you were once committed to some asylum, to go to a hospital because you had a pain and you needed an operation. That's allowed today because everyone has them. But not everyone is put away for some mental, I would say, side issue. And so in his case, he did it. The average person would have heard it, and who would believe that in their own home they too could make the dog or the cat or the bird or anything else conform to an imaginal act? Well, having done this, now he sees the power within him. He's not going to go all out. He knows he's done it. He has tangible proof that he's done it. And from now on, he said he's going to actually be faithful to what he has found within himself. He's found Christ. The day is coming, he will actually stand in the presence of infinite love. But before we stand in the presence of infinite love, he presents himself first as infinite might. And throughout the Bible, you can't find any basis to deny it. It is might, it's power and authority. From beginning to end, when he presents himself, it's sheer might, sheer power. Until one day, man will see that this power on this level, and in many levels below, resolves itself into infinite love. And it's man. And it's the being that you're moving towards, and it's God the Father. So here, in his own case, it scared him, or rather it depressed him, to think that such power was in man, and yet it's no other place. It's only in man, because the power of which we speak, the greatest power in the world, really the only power, is your own wonderful human imagination. Now, the lady whose story I told first, Jan said at this present job of hers, this little boy came home from school, and the high winds we've been having took the aerial down and flattened it. It's still on the ground, she said. And so she tried the TV, and there was no TV. She tried it, and there was no TV. The little boy came home and she said, oh Lord, he's going to be so disappointed because he's back from school and he wants to see the TV. So he goes straight to the TV, he turns it on. He saw the aerial flattened. Then he put his two hands on the top of the machine and just put them there. And she said to him, you know, there's going to be no picture. Oh, yes, there will be. That does it. And she said, what does it? Said, my imagination. I just imagined it. He'll do it. He came back, got in front of the picture with Jan, and here comes this beautiful picture. Now, Jan couldn't do it, and yet she knows this principle, but she's an adult now. We become adulterated as we grow in this world. The little child could actually believe that that power in his hand was all his imagination. He'll do it. And Jan told me over the telephone, because she's working, she can't come here now, that the little boy only put his hand on it and swore that here would come a picture. And the picture came to Jan's amazement, but not to the boy. He sat and looked at it, and Jan sat there bewildered, the one who has the thing now to go to Egypt. Now to come back to the gentleman's story. Said, I saw an ad of a Swiss record changer. And so I went over to my electronics dealer, and I told him that I would like one. He said, they aren't in the country, and there will be possibly a few weeks before they get here. But we have 11 orders so far. Would you like to order one? He said, yes, I'd like to order one. So he ordered one. So he said, at the end of the month, he received the bill for $375 for the changer. Well, he hadn't received the instrument, so he called up the office. And they apologized. They said that the girl mistook the order for a sale. And so, we have bad news for you, said the girl. It will not be here for 3 or 4 months. But they corrected their mistake. It was not a bill. It was simply an order that they had misinterpreted. He then said to himself, I will now look around the house, and spent 3 days instead of writing to see where he's going to put the outlet for this machine. And when he decided where he'd put it, he called the electricians and had them bore a hole through the wall to put in the cable for this changer. Now he said, I will need a stand for it. So he went out looking for a stand. Went to all the places, and one salesman said, what kind of a machine have you? Because you don't like these stands. So he told the nature of the machine. The man said, if you have one, it's a miracle because there aren't any in the country. And they would be here for 3 or 4 months. Which was only confirmation of what the agency said. He said, all right, I can't find the stand, I will design one. So he designed the stand and had it made. When the stand came and he placed it where he intended putting the machine, he said to himself, I will now see the machine there, which he did. Now he said, now that I have the machine, it is only fair to pay the bill. So he sat down and wrote the check out and sent the check off to the electronic firm for his $370 in full for his machine. 2 days after this, they called him to say, we have your record changer. He wondered why. There were 12 of them on the list. The man only received 4 in his shipment of an order of 12. And this friend who wrote me the letter said, well, it could be that I sent my check in advance because I paid for what to me was before me in my imagination. It could be that, on the other hand, I'm not asking questions. Why he gave me the first one in, and why he jumped me from 12 to number 1. However, I have the machine, and now my next problem is this. It's a very delicate, complicated, sly, tricky thing. And so I am now trying to imagine myself smart enough to operate it. So that is the story of using your imagination. I say faith, as good told, we understand that by faith the world was framed by the word of God. But you know who God is now? Your own wonderful I amness. That's God. He is framing his world, but it takes faith. To hear it without faith, it won't work. To hear it mixed with faith, it will work. If you sit down as he did, he said, I lay on the bed. You can sit right here and carry on this inner mental conversation from premises of fulfilled desire. For thinking follows the tracks laid down in one's own inner conversations. You control the nature of the conversation and see to it that it's not an argument. It's simply from wishes fulfilled. Regardless of the nature of that wish, you carry it on the inside. Some are better at the video. They can see better, they can hear. But I find hearing so very, very easy. And I'm not a musician, so you don't have to be musically inclined to really hear. I appreciate music, but I don't play. And I don't understand music in the true sense of the word. I simply appreciate it. Yet I can hear it vividly. A man's voice, let me speak for us 1 second. Let me get the tone. Then put upon that tone any word I want to hear, and I hear it as though he were here. Now, how long it takes for what I have heard him say to come to pass, I don't know. As we tell you in that story of the book of Habakkuk, the vision has its own appointed hour. It ripens. It will flower. If it be long, then wait, for it is sure, and it will not be late. So, one seed grows overnight. Another seed takes a month. Another seed takes a year. As in birth, a child comes to this world 9 months. But a chicken comes out in 21 days. And so everything has a different interval of time between conception and birth in this world. So what determines the nature of that interval, I don't know. But have faith that it is sure and it will not for its own sake be late. Not for its own nature will it be late. So if a child comes out in 9 months, it isn't late for a child. And if a chicken comes out in 21 days, it's not late or early for a chicken. That's the interval of time between that moment where it was fertilized and properly nested, and then the moment of breaking the shell and hatching. So here in our case, apply it. And you will, in the next few months, I'm only here for 3 months, not yet 3 months, and you'll be able to tell me the most fantastic stories in the world. Because you couldn't start from anything more behind the 8 ball. You meet a conservative gentleman who would never, beyond, the wildest dream, go outside and exclaim something is really absolutely sensational. It's so against his nature. A thing is good. That's good enough. You're being well paid for it. You got 2,500, and you got 3,000 for a script, and every 3 weeks you're bringing one in because it's a half-hour show. It runs weekly. So every 3 weeks you're getting a check for 3,000. Now you're getting for 3,500. And yet the man, I'm quite sure, like all writers, he is not contracted to write only and only for that, if he has time outside of writing these scripts. There are other outlets for his talents as a writer. He's not confined to that. And therefore, the man who is not given to exploding, he made him explode and raised him gradually to great, just great, terrific, and then the final explosion. And he said in his letter, it's the warmest and the friendliest of relationships between us. So I ask you to do the same thing. I don't care what it is in this world. Know what you want. Conceive a scene implying the fulfillment of that dream. And then inwardly carry on these mental conversations from the premise of the fulfilled desire. If you can see at the same time that you hear, like a TV set, all right, put them together. It's better. But if you can't really visualize, and not many can visualize, you will find the audio very, very simple. But when you begin to visualize, may I tell you, it's the most thrilling thing in the world, to be able to actually see. Just like this, to be in a dream awake. It's like being in a dream, only awake. And so when you break it and return to this level, where it hasn't taken place, you have no fears. You have no doubts. The whole world will collapse. You know, you saw it. You're still seeing it in your mind's eye now, but you actually saw it. And you heard it, and so it must come to pass. You saw it and you heard it. And so if you meet someone who's passing through sheer hell, and they ask of you anything, they're in your world, single them out and hear them tell you that they have what they sought, just as though they have it. And then let it go. Don't raise a finger to make it so. Don't get on the phone and call a friend to ask the friend to intercede, to help him out. Don't do a thing. Just simply believe in the reality of your imaginal act. Because if you go to the end, then you can concern yourself with the means to that end. That would deny the end by any means that you would even entertain to aid the birth of it, because you went beyond the pregnancy right into birth. And so you saw it, and you heard it. Now leave it alone, and let it work. And may I tell you, it will work. And then you will find God. And when you come to the final grand, I would say, the last stretch, the final stretch, when you're going home now, really going home, leaving behind you this world, this age altogether, they will come one after the other, the most fantastic mystical experiences, where everything said of Jesus Christ, you will experience. And you will know beyond all doubt who Jesus Christ really is. That he truly is supernaturally born out of the skull of a man, how he discovers the fatherhood of God, and how he ascends into heaven, and everything said of him happens to you. And so you know how true the story is, how altogether fantastically wonderful Scripture is, when one experiences it. And so I ask you to join with me in testing this greatest of all mysteries. Put it to the test. Start with something simple. The average person would have a destructive animal like the cat, wouldn't consider that a simple problem. And yet in 48 hours, it was resolved. But one point he made, when the man told him, he used the words. He expressed himself when he said to me, terrific. He expressed it with the enthusiasm that matched my imagining. The world is only response, infinite response. It's an echo. And the whole vast world only echoes. And so, what echo in this case? When he said terrific, you can see what the writer's imaginal act was. He actually caught a mood that was really forceful. So when the word terrific came through, it wasn't simply, oh, I think it's terrific. He exploded with terrific to equal the imaginal state of the man who made him say terrific. So catch it and feel it and use your imagination as a great actor would. He has to put himself into the part and play it. And to the degree that he feels it, he gets beyond the footlights. If he doesn't identify himself with the character that he's trying to depict, he never gets over. He has to become the character. And so this one became the character of hearing the actor whose lines he wrote. And the actor was given a line to say, you said terrific. And now listen carefully, because you've got to say it as I am directing it. I don't want any little terrific. I want you to really give it. And so I will now give you the mood that I want you to adopt. And so he gives them to him. And the word comes through exactly to match his imaginal act. And his use of words, to me, fascinates me, because not everyone understands the baseball language. When he said, he threw me a curve, something entirely different. It wasn't what I expected. That was the script that you already said and pronounced good. I don't want that. I want you to pronounce this new statement and say that it is really great. Great. Just great. Of the new script, and I haven't even started the new script. And you use my word, but you sort of predated it. You went back in time and called it the other script. And then the man comes back and actually calls it. But after he changed the word from that to terrific. That's really discovering how you use your imagination. But if you don't, and you think, well, it's just on this level, you will never get off. But I want everyone here to really believe it. And try it. If I take from you this night, if you're here for the first time, and I've taken or shaken your belief in a personal God outside of yourself, a personal Savior outside of yourself, I don't apologize. Because I know it is true, what I've told you. I am not theorizing. I'm speaking from experience. And so when I take this platform and tell you that I know the reality that is God, I wouldn't care what the whole world would say about it. When they say, you don't mean that God truly stood before you, or you stood before him, and you looked into the face of man, I say, yes, I did. And it is man. I am a spirit, but it needs man. Its perfect form to really express anything in this world. So it assumes the form of man. So when you see I am, in form, the form is man. Just like the little girl who told her grandmother, you know what? I went up last night in my dream right up to the sun. And you know what? He has a face. And you know what? He has hands. And he has feet. And you know what? The ocean, the big ocean, talked to the sun. And you know what? The sun came down to the earth. And you know what? He has legs. And he can walk. And he walked right over to me and kissed me on the cheek. And it was hot. Now, isn't that a silly, silly dream, Grandma? But it's true. There is nothing but God, and God is man. And so when Blake was asked, when you see the sun, do you see a big round guinea? He said, no. A host of angels crying, holy, holy, holy. He drew him as man. There's nothing but man, because man and God are one. God is man. So I ask you to take what I've given you this night, take it home, and you try it. It costs you nothing, only the effort and the little time that you will spend in doing it. But bear in mind, when you do it, believe it. Because the words are, the word was spoken to them just as it was to us. But it did not profit them, because they did not receive it with faith, those who heard it. And so when you do it tonight, do it knowing that that in itself is a creative act, that imaginal act. And be faithful to it. Now, faith does not give substance to that imaginal act, that unseen reality. Faith is loyalty to unseen reality. You simply are loyal to it. You made a pledge, all right? Now you're loyal to the unseen reality.